unprofessional, but whatever. Welcome everybody to another movie review for the month of October, Halloween, and I am going to be cover back to back the 1990s classic film, The Addams Family. 1991, then 2 years later, I'm going The Addams Family Values are going to be covered. Not in one video entirely, because I just want to make sure I focus on one at a time to give its just due. Uh, man, I loved this movie as a kid. Everybody involved like did a top-notch job, and it's like you know, it's probably like spoke to. It's like fine. It's like the way I describe the Addams Family films in the '90s. It was like finding something, somebody doing something for you that you didn't necessarily like, but it's uh, hopefully there's no kids in the room. But imagine if, like uh, your partner kind of do something unexpected with you that you didn't even know about or you didn't think you'd be into, but then all of a sudden it becomes like your thing, and it's like became like a mainstay in your life. It was kind of like that. It's like the Addams Family. Growing up in the '90s, things like the Addams Family or The Craft, or any Tim Burton film. Which, by the way, this movie was initially pitched by, well, at least a few other directors, but Tim Burton being one of them. But he ended up turning it down, and they turned to uh, director Barry Sonnenfeld to direct this film. In which they all kind of got that same sensibility, so I don't think we would have messed out too much. But I'm glad we went with this guy because, you know, I don't know how, like, I imagine we'll still probably would have enjoyed Tim Burton's interpretation of this because it probably wouldn't be that much different. But it's just like, I don't know. I think despite their, you know, uh, similar themes, it's just like a minute difference in which way they go about it that I think we, still got a good quality film. Uh, I I love golf stuff. Like I said, I said this many times. I grew up in the '90s, so like things like golf, grunge, emo stuff. You know, I find like appealing. When back then, like adults, probably not probably, they definitely, because even though I was still young, I seen like you know, uh, certain adults, thought that was weird, or it's like, people like that are into Satanism and blah blah blah, which we know better, well within like, the mid to late 2000s, we caught on and knew better that it's like that wasn't the case. That was like it's a style of the time. Uh, but yeah, this movie stars the late great Raul Julia, who, by the way, I know he did a lot of films, but it's only, well, technically I saw, three movies, well, four movies he was in, two of which was the Addams Family films. The other is the Street Fighter film as he played M. Bison. Even though that movie wasn't great, he gave it his all, despite the issues behind the scenes with uh, 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 Jean Claude Van Damme and his drug binge he was like on, and kind of like what, not showing up on set on time and all this other stuff. But he was a hot A-list star, so nobody wasn't going to really say no to him. They was going to wait uh, until he got on set to start filming, yeah, which is unprofessional. But the other movie I seen him in was, I can't remember the name, but I was watching Mystery Science Theater 3000 when they was riffing on a particular movie he was in the 80s. I can't remember the name, but that was the only time I actually saw something that he was in outside of the other three that I mentioned. But I think a lot of people would remember him mostly from the Addams Family as Gomez Addams, and to some extent M. Bison. But yeah, he's great. Angelica Houston, plays Morticia Addams. She did a phenomenal job. Uh, uh, Christopher Lloyd as Uncle Fester. Christina Ritchie, Wednesday Addams. Jimmy Workman as Pugsley Addams. Uh, Judith Malina as Grandmama. Uh, Carol Stryken as Lurch. And we got Christopher Hart as Thing. John Franklin as Cousin It. Elizabeth Wilson as Abigail Craven. Dan Hedaya as Tully. Donna Ivy as Margaret Afford. Uh, Paul Benedict as Judge Womack, who I don't know why. Well, I think I know why, because they look kind of the same. But I always thought this guy was Dick Van Dyke, because he looked kind of the same. Uh, uh, Mercedes McNabb as the Girl Scout who makes a reprisal in the sequel, because even though it was like a small bit, people, people on set loved her, and I think a lot of viewers loved this character, and the way she played off of Christina Ritchie was, great. So yeah, you know, uh, and she'd done other stuff, like she was in like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So a lot of these guys did, become like great actors and actresses long after this, except for uh, the gentleman playing Pugsley, because after the Addams Family stuff, he really didn't want to act anymore, I guess. But lo and behold, he has a sister who you might be familiar with from Modern Family, Ariel Winters. And I was stunned. I only recently found that out. Like, wow. It just blew my mind the same way it blew my mind that uh, the wife of John McClane, the actress who played John McClane's wife, is the aunt to uh, uh, what's his name from Home Alone, the first two, Macaulay Culkin. It's like, didn't know they was related. That was shocking to me. And I was like, wow. But anyway, it's Addams Family has been based off this old comic strip, newspaper strip, created by Charles Addams, who I would say like a good pioneer to. Aside from maybe like what's the writer? It was one of my favorite writers. I'm blanking on his name. Who wrote The Telltale Heart? I'm about to say Charles Dickens. That's not right. Uh, Edgar Allan Poe. Uh, and it's like, just the atmosphere. It's like they, that's why I probably like, you know, uh, that's definitely why I like this stuff. Something about this atmosphere really speaks to me. And this movie is very PG-13, but this is when they kind of lean, uh, push that line, given the fact that like there are certain things is like I was like, wow, like even rewatching it, recently, I was like, wow, why did it not register to me, as a kid? Maybe it just went over my head, or I was having too much of a good time to like really like pay attention to certain things. It's like, uh, that I guess wasn't clicking as a kid to me, to where like the adults probably would be more uh, 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 who get it, like, and Addams Family Values. When I'm sitting on it, we're having like the female bad guy in there, just sexually licking fingers, and I was like, why did I not notice this? It's like, that was like overtly sexual. I was like that just did it just go over my head after all these years? I didn't really focus on that because I guess, having such a good time with the movie. It's just like certain innuendos was like flying by. But anyway, uh, the movie just pretty much based around this family with, outside looking in, weird uh uh into these kind of weird, macabre things. I think like everybody's still in the show. I mean, it's like if I had to pick, gun to my head, had to pick who really like, stood out, was Christina Ritchie as Wednesday Addams. And she honestly gets like just like the greatest lines. It's just like neck and neck with the rest of the family. I think like, thing is way at the bottom because he doesn't speak. And then like Lurch is like, above him, and then Grandmama is like above him. Uh, but with everybody else, they pretty much like, in the family, like neck and neck as far as like great lines. But she is like just edges them out just by a few fractions. And it's like one of my favorite lines because it's just like the way Christina Ritchie's, faces is all just stone cold deadpan, and it's so funny. It's playing a game with her brother, and you want to play a game? What's the game? It's called Is There a God? And it's like I laugh every time, and it's like, there's things going on in the background that you don't really notice at first glance, but when you rewatch this, try to pay attention with, things in the background too, because they're they're kind of like skewed, because like the way things shot, trying to focus on the foreground, so that way you won't really pay attention to what's going on in the background, but the background atmosphere 9 times out of 10 really highlights, things going on, and it makes the scene a hell of a lot funnier. uh like there's one moment when like Uncle Fester is talking with uh one of the bad guys he's working with earlier in the film, and Pugsley walking up to him holding two, like bottles of different types of poison, and he just, and you see like, Wednesday just like bound and gagging in a chair, and Uncle Fist is just like that one. It's just like, it's just so funny. And it's just like these kids are just trying. It's like I know it's pretty much like, almost like a cartoon, like very Looney Tunes kind of mindset, the way like they get away with certain things, but it's like how do these people survive certain these, certain environments? It's like it make no, it ain't supposed to make logical sense, but it's like they still operate on some facsimile of a reality, but they just like Lurch swallows a dart while like, Gomez is trying to throw darts, and he's holding it, the board up, and he's trying to like move it in a way so he can hit the dart and not him, and it's just so funny. It's just the things that they get away with that normally you would die. It's amazing. But like I was bringing about the, background stuff that you got to pay attention to when Gomez is like greeting his wife, Morticia, in the morning, and uh, and she points out about the sunlight, and he like, unsheaths his sword, his rapier, and like close the blinds with it, and you see like a plant on the nightstand recoils by, the sunlight, And I thought that was like a nice touch. It's like there's certain things you got to pay attention to that highlights everything. And it's like the relationship between not just the whole family as a unit, because this is like as macabre as it is. This is like a great family unit, but the relationship between Morticia and Gomez, which, but well, I think all these characters get cosplay a lot every Halloween, but more specifically, Wednesday Addams and Gomez as and Morticia. These are like the top three that gets cosplay a lot every Halloween. Uh, but their relationship with each other is like back in the day. People always dress up as Joker and Harley and like, oh, relationship goals and blah blah blah. Not like some not realizing that relationship at that time isn't something to be idolized. Uh, but I think Gomez and Morticia is the uh, relationship goals we should be achieving to, because they dote on each other. Like the lines. It's been gift a lot, with a lot of these characters, but the way Gomez speaks as like Morticia's about to wake up, he says like, "I would die for her. I would kill for her. Either way, it's bliss." And it's like, you know, realistically, like, I imagine most women would get tired after a certain bit, but you will want, you know, something like that where you acknowledge each other's needs. It's like you never stop the whole dating part of the relationship. It's like you keep, you know, not doing the same thing, but you find new ways to like, love and appreciate by each other. Uh, but not so overly, dramatic as Raul Julia always, does it, because he's very like, that's what we love about it, because he's just so like dramatic, and he's like, going these long speeches, like, in Addams Family Values, he's like, trying to berate a cop, and he's like, he's almost doing Shakespeare the way he's like, going off the rails, and you just love it. It's like acting, and it's so funny at the same time. And it's like he's doing like he's like a Shakespearean actor in like an entirely different movie, and it just highlights the whole entire thing. It's freaking amazing. Excuse me. But yeah. Um, Story goes, you got this kind of like uh, Tully being like a sleazy lawyer working for the Addams, and he's like partnering up with this con artist, uh, uh, Abigail, who is also a loan shark, and he's in deep with her, and she has this henchman slash a doctor's son, uh, uh, named Gordon Craven, but you know, uh, uh, Tully immediately notices like his face, because here's the funny thing, and it's kind of like, not didn't take me out of it, but I never cared for that ridiculous wig, and because I'm not sure if it was supposed to be on purpose or it's affected because like Uncle Fester is just always bald. So I guess he's always wearing like a wig, but they couldn't get like a better wig. If he's supposed to be wearing, as part of the movie, he's supposed to be actually wearing a wig to cover his baldness, but they could not get like a better wig. Because every time I see this film and you see his, Fester's introduction as Gordon, I immediately think of Tony Shalhoub for some reason because it looked like Tony Shalhoub's hair. And ironically, which I guess because I don't like, aside from it wasn't until like when I started watching a little bit of the TV show Monk here and there back in the early like 2000s. Uh, that curly hair, and Tony Shalhoub shows up in like a bit role as a sailor in the sequel, and it's like it was just funny because it's like you got Gordon wearing Tony Shalhoub's wig or something. It's like or a wig to make it look like Tony Shalhoub's hair, and that's how I see it. I don't think of anybody else's hair like that, but they come up with a plan because, as told by Gomez to Tully earlier, that Uncle Fester is like a long lost brother that never returned home, and this uh, ends up causing Gomez to inherit the family estate and riches, which Tully and the Cardinals is trying to take from him, at least by somewhat legal means or nefarious means, but played off as still technically legal. But they need a way to get inside, and they use Gordon because he looks like Fester, even though he is Fester, to infiltrate and uh, uh, gain their trust. But it always starts with Wednesday because she's always the sharpest tack in the bunch. But she quickly, come to realize how suspicious this guy is. But she eventually warms up to him. But I just like how, because like as soon as he was trying to like spend his first night there, and he's peeking out the door, and she just out there just staring. It's like so fucking creepy. But it's just like I love Christina Ritchie in this. Oh, and by the way, some people pointed out, it was like a week or so ago, and I didn't even realize until like I actually once somebody points out certain things that you haven't noticed before, it's kind of hard not to see it then. Like, in Batman '89 and Joker's first introduction, you see like a purple smudge on the side of his neck, and as your eyes is drawn to it. Or that little kid at the end of Back to the Future 3, and he doing this. Now you just can't unsee it because that was really fucking weird why he did that. I'm like, nobody knows. Like, side note, somebody need to track down that kid. And I'm pretty sure he's a full-grown adult by this point. I'm pretty sure, because you might not remember until you show him that scene and ask him, why did you do that? Because, like, maybe he'll just say he was just fucking around. But it was oddly specific to be fucking around with. Because, like, I don't know. That part is weird. And somebody need to ask him why he was doing that. Because that's bizarre. Anyway. So, like, Gomez is taking him, like, to the hitting, like, room, beyond that's next to the vault that you see. Like, man, the atmosphere in this film is just fantastic because they go through this like macabre carnival slide ride with some weird music playing, and it's like the funny edits where it's like as they slide down they're switching places, they're like in kooky places, and it's like Festus is screaming his head off, and Gomez is just like having a grand old time because he found his brothers, like everything's like uh just he's in bliss. But then they take a gondola ride to this final destination, and like this whole entire gondola ride, like the atmosphere. This place is bigger than it's like you think it's dang near like the Batcave mixed with the Forces of Solitude. This is how big it is, like cartoonishly big. But you just love looking at this and these scenes and backdrops. It's like it's just like crazy good. But then, like, of course, you see like the vault when it has all these, gold riches, and you see like how, like, why, like, the Addams is, living, even though they look like they live in like a rundown mansion, but it's just like it is huge. Uh, and it's like where do you find these crazy places to, like how this place got built like over the years, because it took some time, or they just renovated, like, or at least kept in, I won't say renovated, but kept in place certain spots that's probably already there that they found. And didn't see like the recent animated Addams Family films. It didn't look like they were for me, because I don't know. It is just like they're missing something from those that it's very Hotel Transylvania. The latest ones, not the first two ones. Uh, that kind of style, like, I can't get with. Uh, I'm curious about the Wednesday Addams Netflix show, because they have Christina Ritchie as like a gothic kind of teacher, but I'm not sure why they couldn't just make it an older Wednesday Addams and telling like her story with her own family. Very weird. Uh, but the actor, well, the actors they got playing as Gomez and Pugsley, I recognize the guy playing as Gomez because he's like a character actor in a lot of stuff. Uh, and he's great in stuff that I've seen him in. But it's like I don't hate necessarily hate the casting of him as the role as Gomez, because he kind of looks similar to the old comic strip. But that wig he has really takes me out of it, and it's like I don't know why they have that shitty comb over look, because it just it looks so dumb. But then the guy that got cast as like Pugsley for that Netflix show, that kid is, he's not super skinny, but still kind of thin to be playing the role as Pugsley. I want my Pugsley to be pudgy. You couldn't cast, pudgy young actors for the role as Pugsley. You got a kid that barely has a gut, and it's like that also takes me out. Maybe I'm just like too. Maybe I'm spoiled by these '90s films, but like I've seen like an Addams Family cartoon growing up too, and it's like even with the recent animated films, Pugsley has a gut, and that's the whole point. That's what we like. That's part of the reason why we find him so doggone charming, uh, and not just like a fat goofball that most you know uh, cartoons usually like they play make fun of. But it's just like I don't know. There's a certain charm to it that it'd be great to cast the kid with a gut. But anyway, all the while, you know, Fester's trying to, or at least Gordon, trying to uh, earn everybody's love. Each one started to suspect, especially I think like Gomez was like at the tail end, because now they started to suspect him because Fester is not, remembering, even though it was told by the, Abigail playing as like a German psychologist, you know, uh, pointing out like, oh, we found him like, off the Bermuda Triangle with amnesia and all that other stuff. But uh, Gomez is like, suspicious because the fact that, Fester couldn't remember key points in their lives, uh, but it's like you do remember he had like amnesia, so I wouldn't really. I know it's nitpicking after so many years, but it's like looking at it as an adult, but even as a, well, I know I've seen this like, at least a couple of years ago. I think the last time I watched this, I can't remember. I saw this last year per se, but it's like, you know, did you forget he had amnesia? At least that's what you led to believe. So it's like, which he did, but it's like why would you expect him to remember, certain points? Amnesia is kind of like a broad stroke sometimes. But uh, the fake doctor is pointing out to Gomez is like, there's displacement because like you pushed him away because Gomez felt guilty because he was jealous of years ago, jealous of Fester's ability to woo the ladies, especially in particular these what do you call them? Don't want to conjoined twins. Yeah, I didn't want to be insulting, uh, but yeah, the conjoined twins, Flora and Fauna. I love their names. Uh, and Gomez grew jealous, stole them from him, from his own brother, which he feels like caused him to run away to the Bermuda Triangle, where he was gone for 25 years, and suspected, to be dead, which to the Addams family, death means literally nothing to them. I mean, aside from because they got like a graveyard, where all their other family members, of old, uh, are laid to rest there. Each one dying in a myriad of freaking ways. One by like firing squad and uh, 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 it's just like weird poses. It seems like how they die. One of them has a statue uh, of that relative as like an old, kind of old English type of executioner with an axe raised, and it's like, uh, like I said, the atmosphere is spot on. I love it. Uh, I love this part, whereas Fester's warming up, or Gordon's warming up to the family, and he sees the children practicing a sword fight for this play, school play, and he's teaching them how to like land lethal strikes, like the jugular and stuff like that. And of course, he's starting to love the family and being around them. And he was told by Abigail not to go with them to the play because since they're all going to be out, it's a perfect time to go snooping and try to get inside that boat to steal their money. But Gordon abandons all that plan because he really wants to see these kids at the play. And man, do I love this scene. It, to this day, is hilarious. I love it. And it's like, My Future Kids has to be well, all in like, personal kind of thing, but it's like, if I have, well, children in general, but if I end up having like a daughter, she either gotta be like Kamala Khan from Miss Marvel, or as like Wednesday Addams. One of the two, because I love that kind of attitude, from these two particular girls, and it's just like, obviously, so proud if my kid goes on the stage, school play, and somehow figured out to do fake blood and cutting off limbs and stuff, and just like, splurt it out in the crowd, and everybody just kind of a stunned look while the family stands up and applauds, and it's like I got a kick out of that. I could not stop laughing. Like it's still to this day so funny, and it's like oh my god, it's like I'll be so freaking proud. Like I'll be screaming like that's my kids, like those are my babies, like that's what I'm talking about. Like bravo, bravo. And it's just like I know like people will be freaking disturbed, but I don't even care, man. I'll be freaking proud. They did like a fantastic job. Just like it's so amazing. Blood everywhere. Like God, it's like as a kid, you know, I was like a little stunned they like did that in a school play, but at the same time I was glued. I was like, that is just like I was like impressed. I remember being impressed by the saying like, wow, they could do that? Is they could do that? It's like, oh my god, that's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. I love this film, man. Oh my god. It's just nonstop laughter. It's the actors involved is just incredible. Uh, the Abigail's a little upset because Gordon like abandoned like the plan. Now she's laying down the law with him. It's like, okay, we gotta do this. So no messing around. Because she assumingly is saying that he has to leave. So Gomez doing planning like a like a going away kind of party just to celebrate Uncle Fester returning back home after being missed for so long. So he invites like the entire family. It's kind of like a huge family reunion, and everybody's gathered, and uh, you forget, like, or at least probably, uh, well, let's say you probably forget that they got like some kind of Cossack slash Romani kind of heritage. The way like the whole, because I've seen films when it has like Romani type of people in a gathering, especially like the olden times, and just like certain aesthetics are similar. So that's why it's like oh wow, like the Addams family has Romani blood in them and some Kazakh, which I'm not sure if that's the same thing or just blended. I'm not sure, but they have that, and just like the Mamushka dance, and it's like here's what I question a little bit because early in the film, Fester doesn't remember certain key things from this family, like locking the lock mechanism to the safe and what's the combination. He's didn't know it even though he's supposed to. Certain uh, uh, things he's like supposed to say to Gomez after he says a particular thing is supposed to be their little back and forth. Like certain like siblings have with each other, like kind of code they can speak to each other with. But he, I'm not sure what they practice, but the fact that they doing knife juggling and catching a blade in his mouth and this dance moves, and it's like the choreography is like very on point, and it's like he should not know how to do any of this because he didn't get his memories back as of yet. So it's like, how does he know how to do any of this stuff? Because there's certain moments, looking, watching this and pay attention to certain things so I can do this review and point out, certain cons that I find. That is kind of like a big one for me because they bring up one more about the amnesia, but they have certain moments when a professor doing certain things like this that he should not be able to know how to do, but he just does it anyway. But I don't know, maybe you can chuck it up for it to being cartoony, or you probably taking it way too seriously, or whatever. But it's just something that I find kind of like probably the most glaring out of anything. Of course, Wednesday overhears their plan on robbing them. She runs off, hides out in a cemetery for a hot minute, and then Tully goes to the judge, who already does not like the Addamsons, especially Gomez, who keeps practicing his golf swings by causing any golf ball to go in the window of the judge that lives next door to him. And it's like, it's amazing how maybe it's because they're so rich they can get themselves out of jams like this, but it's like, it's amazing how he just doesn't get any kind of trouble, and this judge is just like so fed up to agree to do something illegal as because he not bite off, but convinced to, once they seize, because his Uncle Fester, he's the oldest, so technically all the riches and house and everything involved that went to Gomez uh, is supposed to have gone to the older sibling by default, which is another weird thing because those kind of assets supposed to be split amongst the family, not going just because the older kid, uh, just because they have an older kid doesn't mean everything have to go to them. It wouldn't make any sense. But it did, and since Tully and Abigail are in cahoots, they forced out the Addamses and put a restraining order against them, thanks to the judge, to keep them from entering the house, which that gives them enough time to try and find this vote again, and avoid all these booby traps. And of course, Gordon is sad. He's depressed. Like he feel like in a bit, like turn his back on these people that welcome him in, and then Morticia goes in to try to talk with them, but finds out what's going on. They hold her hostage. They hold her hostage, or at least just straight up like just bound and gag her, or not gag, but just bound her to this kind of like seemingly torture device. But knowing Gomez and Morticia, it's probably like some kind of sex thing. And speaking of which, while I'm on the topic, these two are the horniest couples I've ever seen in a film, and they is completely all over each other. And it's like one more during the auction when you hear them in the background just getting off about like outbidding each other. And like, Calamita, like Morticia, that's French, and we, and it's like, and they outbidding each other over a Chinese finger trap that they donated, and it's like, and you see the judge's face who's conducting the auction, just like the disgust on his face, because we don't know what they're doing specifically. All we hear is the moans, and he's like, dear God. It's like they're so sexual, and so it makes it so funny. And they just get it on any chance they get. But it's like I said, those are relationship goals. Like that's kind of relationship you more than 9 times out of 10 will want. But Thing finds out that Morticia is being kidnapped. He goes, finds Gomez, Morse codes that she's in trouble. He drives back to the house. They convinced him to unlock the vault so they can take the money. Otherwise, they'll kill Morticia. And part of my brain is like, these people don't die. I can imagine you might shoot them; they'll just freaking like it, and they somehow survive. But Gordon, not wanting to go any further with this this scheme, takes a book that Tully finds earlier in the film that turns certain actions in the pages into reality, like a hurricane, and opens a book and causes these two to be blasted out of the house and lands in open graves by Pugsley and Wednesday. And a funny line from these two is, Pugsley asking like, "Are they dead?" And Wednesday is like, "Doesn't matter." I was like, "Oh my God, I freaking love these kids." Uh, uh, but the ensuing like hurricane that occurred in the room shoots off like a lightning bolt that hits Fester's head, regaining his memories. Now, behind the scenes, all the cast members really fought for the writers and I think the director into actually making Gordon actually Uncle Fester, because the initial plan, it turns out that is not to be Fester, but somebody they can just accept as part of the family, and he'll just be Uncle Fester 2 or something like that. or just like a replacement Uncle Fester. But I'm glad that the cast really fought hard for this change, because I think this needed to be Uncle Fester. I didn't want to. I don't want to live in a world where they just decided, because I think that will end not badly, but like they kind of take a few notches off their credit if the end result probably in like a different universe where this ending probably didn't exist, to where it's like, oh, we'll just accept him as part of the family. You are Uncle Fester to us. And it's like, no, like that wouldn't work. Just make him Uncle Fester if that's the case. It wouldn't make any sense. Uh, so like the movie ends with like, Uncle Fester returning back to the fold, and they having a great time scaring trick or treaters, and the somehow like it was supposed to be the girlfriend of Tully, uh, because growing up I always thought that was his wife or something, but she ends up hooking up with cousin It, and in the second film they have a kid together with a nickname as What. Uh, Actually, the word What, that's the baby's nickname. But initially in the film, she, like Tully, finds the Addams family's antics, disturbing and disgusting, that kind of thing. She's, very repulsed by certain things that they're doing. But by the time she hooks up with cousin It, leading into the next film, she's all on board with these shenanigans, and it's like that's like a quick change for me that like I never felt that jive with me, because it seems like, okay, where's this quick turnaround? And it's like, it's like I'm not opposed to her finding something in cousin It that she finds appealing, and they hook up and get in a relationship. But it's just like I kind of wish she still retained somewhat of a bit of disgust uh, with certain of the Addams' antics. Uh, uh, but tolerates it better. I would have gone with that instead of just like a complete 180 that came out of nowhere. Also, I do appreciate, because I don't think we ever really get uh, this in any kind of, from my recollection, any other kind of Addams Family uh, uh, variants across forms of media, except uh, uh, these two films, to where we see the extended family. And I think that's a cool thing. We never get that. Uh, it's nice to see. They have like this tall, lanky kid that dancing with Wednesday in the ballroom, where he has like a hunchback. And I think this kind of supposed to be like a play towards either Igor from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or a play on the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's got to be one of the two, because the way the hunch works. Uh, but I just like to see these kind of things, because like it just can't be these people in this one house and being that's it of the family. But that's why I really appreciate. But anyway, I'm going to go in a few minutes into Anna's family values. Let me know. I'll let you know what I thought of that, any pros and cons about that, because I do have opinions on that one. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought about the Addams Family 1991 film. Leave a like, hit that notification bell, share this with your friends, uh, and definitely subscribe, because if you find my movie reviews very appealing, because we're gonna keep going for the month of Halloween, because there's more stuff down the pipeline before the month ends. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Oh, and by the way, I didn't do this earlier in the film, but earlier in the video, but da 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 da.